This is your first time watching this, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, man. What's up, everybody? How you doing? Welcome back to Horror Hangout, my podcast over here on this channel. So thank you very much for joining me. It's episode 8. I got Josh, who also joins me on Shopcast every week, my best bud, and we watched Debbie Does Dallas together in the same room, holding hands. It was weird, and I enjoyed it. All right, have a good night.
Not holding hands.
Holding something, all right. No, but YouTube's like, no, we watched Peter Jackson's, man, I messed that word up, didn't I? Dead Alive. Jackson. Sound like Sean Connery. Jackson. Peter Jackson. Yeah, we watched Dead Alive. And Josh had never seen Dead Alive, apparently. I hadn't seen it in a long time. I'm not gonna front, dude. It was so long that half of it I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about this. I honestly forgot that it was in New Zealand. Like,
yeah.
I hadn't seen it in so long that I wasn't even remotely thinking like New Zealand. So like, when I started talking, I was like, what is going on? I was like, I don't remember this at all. I was like, oh, wait a minute. Of course, that's how they would talk. But yeah, dude, Dead Alive. What'd you think? Or let's talk about the movie for a second. Like, what's it about? So, it's honestly kind of a strange movie, and I had never really thought about it in reference to Evil Dead, for real. And the reason being is because the Evil Dead the color palette is so much different. Like, it's all based at like dark nighttime, and this one's not. But if you take that out of the equation, it really does have a lot in common. Mm-hmm. When you brought that up, I was like, oh damn! I like rewound part of it to rewatch like half of the movie because I was like, I wanted to watch it from that lens, or through that lens rather. Excuse me. And the movie's about, I don't know, this like weird guy with mom problems that hangs out at his mom's giant mansion. She's like this debutante who's just a really gross, gnarly. Honestly, she's basically a Trump supporter, and she's like, I'm kidding, but
she's a domineering mother.
Yes, and she's like doesn't want him to go out with any girls, doesn't want him to have any friends, wants him to stay home. Her house was like spick and span. She's freaking out about how dirty it is, like rich white lady stuff, you know. And then there's this girl named Paquita, and this movie's gonna get me canceled. She's like runs the market, and they meet, and she does like this voodoo stuff. She's told she's gonna meet this guy and fall in love with him. So instead of actually meeting a guy and falling in love with him, she sees him and goes, "Oh, it's that guy!" Basically, it's nonsense, dude. Like some shit falls on the ground, makes this weird symbol. It's stupid. But basically, I don't even remember how the whole undead thing happened. It was like,
you remember the first scene of the movie? How does the movie start?
Oh, that's right. With that, they're out with the fuck, dude.
Yeah.
Let me think exactly how. You tell me how it starts, because I already rewound that part of my brain. I'm on to the next reel.
It's like the people from the zoo. They go out.
The zoo, and then she gets bit by that fucking claymation rat monkey thing.
Yes.
That's right. Okay, thank you. Yes. Oh yeah, and it's like this. I really like the stop motion stuff, dude. I like that he does that. He did it in Bad Taste, and he did it in Meet the Feebles too. And even though it doesn't really look right now, back then it looked amazing. And I like the way it looks when you put stop motion animation in a live action movie. I think it looks really cool because it's clearly not real, but it's a physical thing. And I just like the way it looks. It looks neat. It reminds me of the 90s stuff. There was a lot of that kind of thing on MTV. And it just reminds me of my youth. And anyways, this like rat monkey situation, it like bites the living shit out of her. And then she's like smacking dudes at the zoo. And
she stomps the shit out of it. She like crushes its head.
Dude, and they had like this, they had made this like puppet thing. And I guess they made it out of like, they had used condoms on the inside of it. And they had holes on all the rubber, so when she stomped on the rubber, the condom filled with fluid would go through the holes and it would look like guts. Dude, it was amazing, but it was so simple yet so genius. And yeah, man. And then just after that, honestly, it just kind of takes a little sharp left turn into Zanyville, and like just I'm not gonna keep talking about it in detail because it'll take us 2.5 hours to talk about, but like just zombie stuff starts happening. This dude's trying to be like a good person, and he doesn't want to just like set these zombies on fire or brain them or whatever. So he's like taking them home and keeping them in his house and like he has tranquilizer shit. He's like shoving in their neck, and they choose every chance they can get to do something disgusting and gory. They do it, and you know, his mother dies eventually, and then his uncle's trying to get the property on her out of her from her will or whatever. It's just this. It's the most like family drama plus Jerry Springer plus Evil Dead equals this movie. That's what it felt like. It felt like this could have easily been on the Jerry Springer show.
Okay, yeah, I can kind of see that.
Just because of how shitty the people were to each other, and it was just like, man.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, for sure.
Anyways, I want to shut up for a minute. I want to hear your thoughts on this movie, Josh. If you want to explain any part of it or anything, feel free. That movie's, I don't even know how old that movie is, but it's old. It's like 35 years old. So, spoiler alert to anybody. If you ain't seen this movie yet, pause it here.
Yes. Well, I'll just say I really liked it. You know,
I just don't even understand how you like this movie and some of the stuff that I... Except that, like, you can tell from watching this that Peter Jackson was a good filmmaker, because there were things in this movie, though it's a bad movie, quote unquote, there's like really good camera work in it and stuff like that some of the other movies just can't get because those guys aren't capable of it. So there were things like that, but
yeah, no, it is absolutely silly, and horror comedy is not really my thing.
I'm shocked.
But I kind of knew that it's what it was when I getting into it. But I really like Evil Dead too, and that's horror comedy as well. And this is like, to me, is definitely a love letter to Evil Dead in its own way. It's not
for sure
the same,
dude, but the camera work is so similar in so many different parts of the movie. All the close-ups are legitimately Bruce Campbell close-ups. That's all they are. They're the that shit. That's all it is.
It's like a super wide angle lens that they like push right into their face, and it just like distorts everything. Yeah. It's like super claustrophobic. You're like, why am I so close to this person? It looks like
for real. There's a bunch of scenes in the movie where I was like, yo, back up a little bit, dude. Like,
right. It makes you feel
talking to the cameraman.
It makes you feel really uncomfortable, though. That's I think that's what it's supposed to do. But
for sure.
Yeah. It's just, you can tell that Peter Jackson was going to be a mastermind of special effects.
Yes.
From this.
Yeah.
Like, you can see like, you know, he every moment he can, he's gonna find a way to like make some kind of goo squirt out of something or do something weird.
Yes. Yes. One thing I'll say about that is that I watched it twice.
Okay.
Because I hadn't seen it in so long, and I had so much fun watching it the first time, but I was also watching it at my store the first time that I watched it to talk with you about. So I missed a little bit of like dialogue and stuff. So I thought, I'll use that as an excuse to rewatch it, even though the dialogue honestly isn't really that important in this movie. It's not really what people watch it for. I find it interesting that he went from using such high caliber and such beautiful practical effects to being like the CG guy, because, and I don't know how much of the stuff in Lord of the Rings was practical. I'd imagine plenty of it was, but
quite a bit.
That movie was known for its CG, or that whole series rather. And I'm not complaining or talking crap. I just find it interesting that he went from being that guy to this guy, and most people are either on either team. They don't like to dip into both camps, and I don't really care. I don't prefer CG stuff, but there's movies that you can't get away from it because the time they were made, they were trying new things, so you have to accept that. And I've gotten a little more off my high horse and off my pedestal, and I'm like, no, dude, look, fucking shut up, quit being an idiot. This is a good movie. Who cares about the CG? You hear that?
Yeah, baby's not happy.
Bro.
But yeah,
people's elbowed him, motherfuckers. I just find I just think it's interesting that they went from one extreme to the other.
Well, here's how I'll put it. They're both tools, and they should be used as tools. I don't think you should have to fall in one camp or the other.
I thought you were talking about my kids, bro.
Yeah. But like I think it's there's times when you can go fully practical and that works and stuff, but also you know, there's times to use CGI too, and I think we over rely on CGI like way too much these days.
Yeah.
But it is a really good tool. Like even you mentioned the stop motion animation. There's some pretty good stop motion animation movies that have come out recently, but they supplement them with CG, and that kind of smooths out some of the motion and stuff like that. It makes it look a little.
I completely understand and agree with that. And I think that, like, my issue with CGI stuff, it isn't Iron Man's suit. It isn't a building that wasn't there that needs to be there. Right. My issue with it is an arm gets cut off and blood squirts everywhere. Why is that even asked about CGI? That needs to be a practical effect because you can do it and you can do it right and well. That's where my beef comes in. And I've started to kind of figure that out, that my problem isn't with the big budget movies all the time. On occasion it is, but generally speaking, it's because the low budget movies want to try to do stuff that they shouldn't be doing. And well, it just drives me nuts. I think that he really has a great mind for what needs to be done and when and where. And I think that's where the difference is really made, because I would go all practical all the time, which is, like you said, there's a time and place for that. But there's also a time and place for not that. And I would end up messing something up because I would be stubborn and want to go all practical. So
there's like limitations to that as well. So there's times where you want to go to a bigger scale where, you know, CG just makes sense.
It was cool in 1974 when it had to be done that way. It doesn't have to anymore. Use the tools you've got.
Exactly. Yeah, and we've talked about this before, and like one of the best examples I think is Jurassic Park. Like, because
still looks so good.
The T-Rex in the original Jurassic Park looks better than any of the other movies. Like,
how weird is that?
Lost World movies look terrible because they fully rely on CG. But that T-Rex in the original Jurassic Park looks like a real dinosaur. And it's a mixture of a practical dinosaur that they built out of foam and rubber and CGI. Yeah, it's both.
Okay, I was never 100% sure that it had some practical in it, but it does, huh?
It does, yes.
Oh, that makes me really happy, because that means that they literally were like, how can we achieve the best look that will look the best for the longest amount of time? And they were like, well, we have to use both. And instead of being an asshole about it, they were like, all right, let's do it. Because those are the people that no matter what they make, I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that I'll at least respect their work, support it with my money, and give it a shot. And I'll never shit on it. Like, if you do that, look, I only bring this up because you know why I had a problem with it, but like with Aquaman, had they done some of the stuff different and they didn't want to spend half the time underwater, which it's Aquaman, I get it, but like, if they wanted to maybe try to make it a little more of a realistic movie and they added some more practical stuff with all the special effects, I may not have liked it any better, but I would have respected it more. And they don't need my respect, I'm just a guy, but this is what this whole show is about, is talking movies. So, but like, I personally would really like to see more. I don't know, man, it feels like people like to go the easy route, and whether that's practical or digital, it likes whatever's one's easy, that they seem to take it. And I understand that, but I don't appreciate it, because it's like, man, you're making something that's going to be put out there and immortalized. It's never going away, dude. So if you put your name on something and it ends up looking like crap, how are you going to get another job, dude? Then you have assholes like me on the internet talking crap about you all day.
Or it might look good to today's standards, but in 10 years it looks horrible, you know?
That's the case from a lot of stuff. That's what I was referring to earlier, is like all the stuff that I have to go, all right, there's a time and place where that was going to happen regardless. And like, everything from like 98 to 2008, I think falls into that category. That decade was rough.
Yeah. Early CG is especially rough. And that's where I would
bad over that. Like, give me like 80s garbage CG over that.
Or, you know, I'd much rather go watch something, you know, much earlier, that's practical and even doesn't look real, but it looks like it's there in the room. You know, it looks like someone's trying to control it, and like,
Absolutely.
it looks like
Absolutely.
a real, like, tangible thing than some sort of like pixel box that
So let
obviously
me ask
isn't
you
there.
this. When it comes to stuff like CGI, okay, let's use Star Wars as an example, because it's actually a really good example of this.
Mhm.
So when they're when they're having a battle with lightsabers, especially in the original 3 movies, the original trilogy, right? And
Mhm.
it's super clear that when they go vroom, that it's not something that's really there. It's just coming out. It's clearly a digital computerized effect, right?
Mhm.
Wouldn't you rather have a studio that went, all right, we're going to try to make this laser sword happen, right? But I want it to look real, right? And then they just missed the boat. Or they can go, well, let's just make it look like Star Wars stuff did back in the 70s. We know what that has to look like. We know how to make that. I would rather them go and just intentionally make it not look real, but make it look cool, than try to make it look real and miss it completely. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but I know what I'm trying to articulate here, because I see it all the time in these movies where I go, that looks like they tried to make it look good and it doesn't. They could have made it look like even like a retro vintage look, and it would have looked cool. Like, why do you think they go with that decision so often? Because they do. And what do you think about that? Do you even think about that stuff at all?
So you're I'm trying to get exactly what you mean by that. This
is hard to articulate.
Specifically with Star Wars, like the difference between the newer ones and the older ones, or
no, like on any movie. I was using Star Wars as an example because like their stuff looks, it's a dated CG look. It's fake looking, right? But I like the way it looks. There's still movies today that are made that use these weird, cheap CG stuff, and it looks like it was made 30 years ago. But I like that look more so than if they were like, all right, we only have this much money. They go, okay, well, we can make our stuff look retro, but make it look good retro, or, which is obviously fake, not really there, or we could try to make it look as real as possible. It's still CG. Let's cross our fingers and hope it looks right. And then they get the final product and it looks like a CG thing that wasn't made right versus something that just looked cool and retro. It's clearly fake either way. I don't know, man. It drives me nuts whenever you go, that could look way cooler if it was made intentionally to look like something from the 80s or 70s, when you could have made it probably cheaper. And instead you went and tried to make it look uber realistic. And then, like you said, in 10 years, it looks even worse.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's all about your resources, and it's all about knowing what you can actually get for your budget and stuff like that.
I imagine some people don't even think that way. They just go with what looks the best. They go, what can we afford to do? Let's make it look the best we can afford it. And I don't know that it's always the right choice. But, you know.
Yeah, it's all creative decisions at the end of the day. You know?
It's a stupid gripe. I don't think about it often, but when I see stuff on TV, I go, but dude, you could have made that look so much cooler if it was like, I'm trying to think of an example that's a modern movie that would fall into this category. If I think of one in a minute, I'll tell you. I mean, shit, I'll just text you later if I think of it later. But like, anybody that doesn't know us, this is my actual friend. Like, talk every day. But like, it's one of those things that I don't understand how you get to a certain decision, because it has to go through a few people before it gets finalized on most things, I would think. And so nobody spoke up and went, that would look cooler if you just didn't try. So that's what it is. They try too hard. And it's like, dude, stop trying so hard. Make it just look cool. If it's fake, it's a laser. Those don't exist anyways. We all know that. So let's just make it look as cool as we can make it. And I feel like that's what I'm trying to put out there, is that they try too hard and it doesn't end up working out. And I feel almost bad for the director and the people that are making it, because I'm like, dude, I want to like what you're making. And look at Psycho Gorman stuff like that. Some of the stuff looks ridiculous on purpose. And they're like, look, we're not going to make this look real. It doesn't really exist. Everybody knows it. And so let's just make it look as cool as we can. And, some of the set pieces are obviously like foam, and you're like, it's still badass.
Right. And that was going for a very retro aesthetic though too. Yeah. So it depends on, what you're going for.
That's true.
If you're trying to go for a comedic and retro,
there's some people freaking hate retro looks. They're not going with that no matter what. They're like, I hate that shit.
Yeah. But let's get back into Dead Alive. I want to talk about it a little bit more. Did you remember what the little subtitle was when they're trying to get the monkey at the very beginning?
No.
They were on an island. It's Skull Island.
Wait, Skull Island?
It says Skull Island.
Like King Kong Skull Island?
Yes, it's King Kong Skull Island.
Is it supposed to be the same place?
Yes.
That's amazing. How did I not put that together?
Well, Peter Jackson is a huge King Kong fan. He remade it later on.
Yeah.
2005. But that original movie is like one of the first like really big practical, stop motion.
Man, how did I not? I don't think I even registered that that's what that meant, bro. Because like that is awesome.
Yeah. It's like a really cool little.
That's a little Easter egg right there, man. I've seen the movie probably 4 or 5 times in my life. I didn't watch it like all the time, but I've seen it a few times before this, and I never put together that Skull Island could mean it was connected to the King Kong thing, even if it's not really connected, but it is because it's in movies. But like that's badass. I like that. Makes me want to watch it again. Even like that's awesome. I'm gonna make Carissa watch this with me pretty soon. She's probably gonna be mad, but it's all right.
It's so silly though. I don't know how. Like even Tori was watching. She watched like probably like half of it.
I think Rickon will like this one. He likes gross stuff. He's a little boy.
Well, you said you just watched
it with you.
No, he did not.
No.
But you said they watched Evil Dead 2, so it's like such the same tone as Evil Dead 2.
I would go as far to say this is even less dark. And Evil Dead 2 is not a particularly dark movie.
Yeah, that's true. I would say this is even sillier. I mean, it's like Three Stooges level of like slapstick.
Bro, there's some ridiculous shit going on in this movie.
When he's like standing, like treading in place, trying to run away from the zombies and just slipping on the blood. Bro. It's like, oh my god! It goes on for like a whole minute. Like,
there's so much disgust. I forgot how disgusting this movie was. I don't get grossed out very often, but they were like, "I'm gonna gross you out." No matter what it, and I was like, nah, bro, I got this. And then like, I was like, bro, that's a little much, dude. Like the what got me was the pudding.
Yes.
When her like
so
when her like disgusting pus stuff shot into his pudding and then he ate it, I almost puked on my table, bro. I wasn't feeling too particularly good this weekend anyways. I was like, oh man, what am I doing? Why am I watching this nasty shit?
And then her ear falls off in her pudding and then she eats it. I was like,
yeah,
ooh.
Bro. Ugh.
That's so nasty. And she eats the dog, the girl's dog later. It's like,
and he's like pulling it out of her mouth, and it's very clearly like a mold of her head. So he's like, you can see like the plastic moving. I mean, not plastic, but the rubber moving around a little bit. I like that kind of stuff. I think that's awesome, dude. Yeah. But this movie is zany is a good word for it. It's an and the thing is by the cover you're very deceived.
Yeah.
The cover art doesn't make sense to me. Like, I don't know where that artwork comes from, but it doesn't feel like the movie you get when you watch it. Like Evil Dead, you watch that, you're like, okay, that poster art makes sense.
Right. For sure. Yeah, no, it's so silly. For the long time, it had the record of the bloodiest movie ever made, too. Like the most blood.
One of the DVDs I have says goriest film of all time on it. And I hadn't watched it in a while, so I was a little hesitant. I was like, I don't know, bro. I've watched some movies that came out in the last 20 years, and then I watched it. I was like, all right, you're probably up in the top 3 at least. Because this shit's nasty.
Dude, I mean, the last like 20 minutes with the lawnmower.
Oh, bro, it's so ridiculous. Oh, it's so dumb. The lawnmower thing.
Buckets and buckets and buckets of blood. It's. I looked it up. It's 300 liters of blood.
That fool said I looked it up. That's awesome.
It literally it's written down because it held the record for a long time.
Really?
Of the most fake blood in a movie. Do you know what holds the record now? I looked it up while I was waiting on you earlier.
No, what is it?
The remake of Evil Dead.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I love that movie.
I was surprised because I've seen it once and I don't remember it being that bloody. I mean, it was bloody, but I don't remember it being that much bloodier. But that's what it said, and it was like a recent article.
I'm about to beat the shit out of this dog. I'm kidding, no people. He's a big giant dumb animal. I'm gonna go see if one's coming.
Pause.
Here.
Cut here.
Right. Mom, what is he barking at? Would you put him out back, please? Fucking giant dumbass. He's just a giant brick. Hey, Dad. Dude, last night I'm filming, and this fool snoring so loud that I had to stop filming 3 times because it was picking it up on the mic.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, and we're back. Sorry about that. Anyways, yeah, man, this movie was. I mean, it barely stays in the category of horror. That's not true. It's just not scary. I have to. I try to tell people all the time that horror movies and scary movies aren't always the same thing, and they never understand what I'm talking about. So I don't usually get into debates about it. But like, they're not the same thing necessarily. They can and often do cross paths. But a scary movie and a horror movie aren't always the same thing. Shit, dude, I find most thrillers scarier than horror movies because they're more based in reality.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Did you have a favorite part of the movie?
I mean, there's so many like crazy scenes. I memean, the lawnmower part at the end is a ton of fun.
My favorite part is definitely the pudding because it's so disgusting. But
yeah,
that actually grossed me out pretty bad. I'm pretty thick-skinned when it comes to this stuff, dude. I had to like go, oh man, like stuff like that, and then like razor blade cuts, that kind of stuff. I can't hardly watch it, but yeah, this one, the pudding thing was just.
I mean the priest scene is pretty hilarious.
Nope, that's my favorite part. I forgot. I kick ass for God.
Yeah,
no, for the Lord.
I kick ass for the
Lord. And then he like ninjas like 5 dudes, and I mean like legitimately ninjas. At one point, he grabs Buddy's arm, puts his leg over it, and goes whap 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 whap. That old like Jackie Chan style shit.
Yes.
He kicks dude's head off, kicks dude's legs off, bro.
Oh my gosh.
That's for sure my favorite scene of the movie, actually.
Dude, and then I almost forgot about this, but the zombie baby. The zombies have sex and get one girl pregnant.
That was pretty disgusting.
Like, what the hell? And then for some reason he thinks that he has to like take the baby for a walk like a regular baby. I don't even know.
He's like running into crap with that like 1940s carriage, like.
And then just like he starts like beating the baby and flinging it around. It's like so stupid.
Oh, dude, I love it so much.
Oh my god.
I wish my memory is a little bit better so I could grasp this stuff in my short-term memory and refer to it better, because it's so hard for me to remember this stuff, even though I just watched it. But whenever I sent you that text that said I kick ass for the Lord, I wasn't even watching the movie at that point. It just popped in my head, and I was like, all right, I guess I'm watching this right now. And I was like, because I was like, that guy was freaking awesome. I had forgotten how cool that guy was, and then when when I said that to you guys, I had forgotten how much of a turd he was when he first shows up. And so whenever I was watching it for the first go round, and he comes into the screen, and he's talking about he's doing the funeral thing, he's being like a prick, right? And I was like, man, I don't remember him being like that. I said maybe there's another priest that is like the ninja priest, and then like 5 minutes later I was like, oh, never mind, I forgot he just his character is a little more complex than I remembered. But yeah, dude, him fighting all those guys was so good, bro.
It's like so random too, it has nothing to do with anything really.
That's what makes it so fun, is that it makes zero sense. Like, it doesn't make any sense. There's no reason for that to happen in that movie, other than it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the most quotable line in the whole movie.
Oh, dude, I'm pretty positive that when I start doing screen printing, that ends up on a T-shirt somewhere in my house.
Oh yeah, that's yeah.
And I'm not even gonna put the Dead Alive priest on there anywhere. So people that see my shirt to say I kick ass for the Lord, people in the horror community are gonna go and then like I'm gonna get like random Christian dudes that are like high-fiving me, and that's where I get my joy. Is it
right. All the misunderstanding? Yes.
Oh man. Or I'll put like a picture of Peter Jackson's face on the back or something, so people that walk by go, I don't understand what that means. And then,
is that Fat Jesus? What is
Peter Fat Jesus Jackson. Oh man, but yeah, I just this is the kind of film that if somebody you're friends with hasn't watched it yet, and they either like horror movies or they just want to watch a classic movie that they haven't seen before, that they can sit back and have just fun, as long as they're not squeamish, because I imagine that even still there's probably people still today that would not be able to watch this movie very well. It's so silly that you can't take it seriously. There's no reason to be offended by any of it because it's very obviously silly. Like when the priest is banging out that chick on the table in the dining room, and then he answers the door, and you hear like, and they're like, he's like, is that your dad's stag movies? It's like, let me get a peek. I'm like, oh, bro, like,
yeah, it's so
who
gross.
wants to watch that with somebody else? But yeah, man, this is a great time. It's a very gory, over the top movie. The story, while it works, doesn't matter. It doesn't need to work, but it does. This is why the movie holds up to this day, is because all aspects of the movie are done well. It's just really silly. It's kind of like Blink-182, man. Like, you know, they're silly, but their music's produced really well, it's written really well, and it's performed really well. So while they're silly dudes, 25 years later, we still like most of their songs because they were done right. And I don't know why that popped in my head, but that seems to be a pretty nice comparison. Yeah, man, this movie was fun. I'm super glad that when you said that you wanted to watch this one, it blew my mind. I was like, oh, fuck yes, dude. I knew I liked it. So I was like, this is right up my alley. I was like, Josh, I don't have a clue what he's going to say about this. Dude, if you'd go down here and be like, that shit was dumb as fuck, I'd have been like, all right, noted. Like,
well, it's that too. It is.
Oh no, for sure. But I'm really, really happy you enjoyed it, man. The fact that you liked this honestly gives me a little more hope for Terrifier, because Terrifier's not as silly as this, but it's way over the top, and it's not to be taken super serious. It's a homage to 80s horror. So maybe one of these days you'll end up watching that one, and I hope you do like it if you do. But yeah, this was a great time, dude. I had a blast. I don't think there's been a damn video on this channel where I haven't mentioned Terrifier. I need to chill. But yeah, man, I'm so glad you liked it. I'm fucking Chris, dude. He's like, yo, that shit was crazy. Like, what the fuck are we watching, man?
Yeah, it's nuts. It is nuts. Like, I mean, the amount of just creative choices you're making in every single scene is so cool. Like,
well, once it starts going, it doesn't stop. It just keeps getting crazier and crazier and zanier and kookier and funnier and sillier and more. Dude, gross factor. This is like a 12 out of 10, bro. The gross stuff that happens in this movie is so nasty that I was laughing to myself out loud in my store every few minutes, and I probably look like a maniac, dude. I was like, what's this fat old man doing in the store laughing at this disgusting movie? There was a couple of points where I paused it to talk to somebody, and it was on like a particularly disgusting scene, and I had to like hit play, wait a second, hit pause again, because I was just like, somebody's entrails were being pulled out, or somebody's head's being knocked off, or
even the guts had their own life. They were like, there was like a pile of guts that was attacking him. Oh my gosh, like, how have I never seen that before?
Dude, there's that movie, it was golly, what's it called, man? It's on Shudder, and it's a anthology movie. And there's a point in the movie where that kind of happens. There are these people, they get this like disease, and they start to like mutate, and they turn into this big pile of just gelatin blob. And it reminded me of that, because at one point the guy's talking, he's like, hey, the guy's the big blob pile, and then the girl like touches him by accident, and she turns into it, and he's like, hey, and it's like these eyeballs in this blob with a mouth, and he's like, hey, could you not get your stuff and my stuff mixed up, because, you know, we could get this figured out. And it just, oh yeah, anyways,
sounds awesome.
No, it is awesome. Well, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, what kind of grade do you give this movie? Because I already know what my grade is, because it was the same it was before I watched it again.
I give it an 8.
Yeah?
Yeah.
This is straight 9.5, sir. This is is just sheer enjoyment level for me. But like,
I mean, for what it's trying to be, it's exactly that.
For what it's trying to be, it's basically about as good as you can get. Especially back then, it still holds up today. Not many movies from that era that do that stuff hold up that well, because if somebody tried to replicate that movie using practical effects, they would fail. Or it just wouldn't be as good. But well, that's what I meant. They'd fail. Fail doesn't mean, I don't mean it to sound like a mean thing, but they wouldn't get that quality no matter how hard they tried. It would take somebody very special.
It's a lot of work that went into it. Like, tons of like legitimate hard work to build all those just limbs and crazy,
Well, I was talking to somebody that came in the store while I was watching it, and they were like, it was a lady, bro. She came in, she was like maybe 5, 6, 7 years older than me, and she's like walking around the store, and I'm watching it, had the volume kind of low, but as she's leaving, she goes, man, I'm glad people are still watching stuff like this. And I had no idea, based on looking at her, that she even knew what it was. And so we talked for a few minutes, and she asked me about, hey, do you think they should remake this movie? And I said, not something I think they should really do, but I said the only people that I think could pull it off would be the Vastron 6 dudes that did Psycho Goreman, The Void, Manborg. They've got experience with all levels of budget and all kinds of practical effects. Now, I don't know that they would make, I don't think anybody's going to make the same movie as good a movie. But if I was going to entrust anybody with that kind of task, and I don't think they would accept that job personally, I think they'd be like, no, I'm good, bro. I don't want to ruin my career by butchering, Dead Alive. But
I don't think you can replicate it. I don't think you can replicate it.
I don't think so either, man.
It is all its own.
So Evil Dead remake, you don't remember it being very bloody, huh?
I remember it being bloody. I just don't remember it being that bloody. Yeah.
Man, that was a super, super gory movie. Like, I remember watching it the first time and being like, what in the shit? Like, I was not expecting it, dude. And it was actually quite scary. Like, I was like, that was a good horror movie, man.
Yeah, I need to rewatch that one. I've only watched it once, but I remember liking it a lot.
I haven't watched it in quite a while. I've got it on Blu-ray. But, dude, what was the movie you mentioned the other day? You said Sam Raimi directed. I had no idea he directed that movie. It was with,
Quick and the Dead. Yeah.
Dude, that blew my mind, man. I had no idea Sam Raimi did that movie. And I've seen that movie a handful of times.
Yeah, I just watched it and I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely a Sam Raimi movie.
Well, I'm for sure going to find a copy and buy it now, because I like the movie. I've already seen it a handful of times. But knowing that he had directed it makes me want to own a copy of it, man. It had Sharon Stone, Russell Crowe, Gene Hackman, young Leo, and anybody else?
That's the big four.
That's a big cast, bro. Woo!
Yeah.
With Sam Raimi directing it, that's a nice little package you got there.
Yeah, it's a fun movie. It was a lot of fun.
Good movie, Josh. No, I'm just playing.
That one was pretty fun. Super silly.
I had a blast talking with you, man. This was a good movie. I'm glad we got to watch it. This little podcast, a little different, a little more free flowing than Shopcast. Namely because there's only two of us having to talk. It's a little easier for us. We're constantly like trying to wait for each other on Shopcast. Either that or we all talk at the same exact time and go, oh, sorry. We do that so frequently. Dude, everybody that does a podcast with two other people, that's how it is. I mean,
absolutely.
That's why Rogan stopped doing all the ones with 2 and 3 people in this room. He's like, we can't, it doesn't work. You have to have one person with you. Yeah, man, this is, it's a pretty similar format, but I like doing it because it's all horror all the time over here on this channel, so you know what you're getting. But I'm really
I know we don't intersect on horror. Like, I like horror, but not the way that you do. And
not enough to do a whole channel on it.
Definitely not to do a whole channel, but we're kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum for the most part. But this is one that I'd heard about forever. I remember, I think it was right after Lord of the Rings came out or something. I was working somewhere, and this guy was like a horror movie guy, and he was like, that Peter Jackson guy made a really like bloody zombie movie. I was like, really? And so he was telling me about it. So I had heard of it 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
and just never, you know.
I remember trying to. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I really only got into started really watching horror movies in probably the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Other than the classics like The Shining or The Exorcist or something, I just hadn't seen. I even Nightmare on Elm Street and stuff like that. Halloween, I just didn't watch them.
It's such a broad genre that it's like its own entire universe. Whereas other movies, they all fit in this one big package, right? And then you've got romance, action, drama, kids, this and that, and then over here you've got horror movies because there's just so much of it. And if you're not pretty much a fan of only that genre, it's going to be hard to dip your toe into it because you'll either get overwhelmed or you'll run into a bunch of stuff you don't like because you only like a certain kind of quality film. And I understand that. I do get people that don't want to watch stuff I like where it's filmed on camera, like camcorder stuff. It's not good movies. I just enjoy watching them. They're funny. I don't take them too seriously. I enjoy watching them. Plus, honestly, I daydream about making movies all the time. So as I'm sure you're familiar with that, you probably do the same thing. And so I watch a lot of low budget stuff because I'm like, all right, if they can do that with 10 grand, me, Josh, and Chris are smart enough to do something equally as ambitious and dumb. So let me save $20 out of this week's check and I put it in the box, But
well, I was thinking about that. I watched the other Peter Jackson movie,
Meet the Feebles?
No, not Meet the Feebles.
Bad Taste?
Bad Taste. I watched Bad Taste last night.
Yeah,
and
how'd you like that?
That movie feels like a home movie that just a bunch of friends, shooting whatever they could. It literally is. It's just a home movie of guys running up and down the hills in New Zealand and making any little practical exploding head or whatever they could find.
I was trying to explain to somebody that Peter Jackson was the same guy that made Meet the Feebles, Bad Taste, and then Dead Alive. And I was like, yeah, it's the same guys that did Lord of the Rings. And this lady was like, it's not the same director. I was like, no, it's the same guy. And she's like, there's no way, because she wasn't even talking about he wouldn't do that. She was thinking that those movies were so far apart in years. They're not as far apart as you think. Lord of the Rings is an old franchise now. And I was like, no, I promise, it's the same dude. I'd pull it up on my phone. Dude, it blew her mind. She was like, that's crazy. But yeah, dude, I'm surprised you watched Bad Taste.
I think it's 92 or something. It's not super old.
Which one?
Dead Alive. I think it's 92 or something.
Dude, it's way later than Evil Dead by 5 or 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah, it's after Evil Dead 2. Evil Dead 2, I think, is 87, 89, something like that.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, dude, it is. I'm very surprised you watched Bad Taste. I could barely make it through that movie. It was terrible.
I mean, it's not a great movie, but there's some pretty if you're watching it as that's me and my friends just making cool shit. That's
it's cool. How I view it. And I also watch that kind of the way I watch Taika Waititi's college film that he makes. He has a bunch of reels that he has that I watched at Alamo Drafthouse, and he's got one where he made this movie. It's a spy movie, but everything in it looks really good except all of the guns are these Nerf guns. but he's when he shoots, he's huh! Pew 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 pew. I love
that's awesome.
TV, man.
Another New Zealander too.
Right? Yeah, he is. Yeah. Well, shit, dude. Let's wrap this up for folks. We can talk, off camera. But thank you so much for joining me, Josh. I appreciate your time, bud. Everybody watching, thank you for joining us. Dude, I got. Let's see. The director of Werewolves Within coming pretty soon. And then I'm going to talk with a young man named Andy Smith Horror, and we're doing The Void. That's all coming in the next couple of weeks. So if you made it this far, that's the next stuff up on the docket. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you for supporting this channel. Take care of yourselves and be kind to everyone else. Peace.